My name is Stuart Duffin, and I'm an artist, a printmaker, a painter, and an educator. Way back in 1998, I offered to paint a Last Supper for Langside Church, where I was and still am a member. And I decided to paint it for the large blank wall space above the doors at the back of the sanctuary. It was 18 months in the making and was part of a comprehensive programme of visual arts installation that we had conceived for Langside Church, which includes, among other artworks, Lindsay McIntosh's beautiful mosaics and Pauline Beck's stunning Celtic cross in the front garden area. As an artist, I am literally divided three ways now, being based in my home studio in the northeast of Scotland, the Glasgow Print Studio, where I am the etching master, and the Jerusalem Print Workshop, where I research, develop and make my own art. I'm also very involved with a number of other arts organisations, both overseas and at home in Scotland, such as the RSA, that's the Royal Scottish Academy of Fine Art and Architecture, where I was elected an academician in 1996. So I get the chance to exhibit regularly in Scotland and abroad, including the Middle East, North America, Russia, New Zealand, Europe, Japan and the Far East. The Last Supper you see in the church today is actually the second version of this painting, as the first one was lost in the fire that destroyed the sanctuary in 2009. But although I was given the chance to remake it, I decided to paint the new one very much in keeping with the original for a number of reasons. It's not a copy, but its concept, its composition, and the sense of drama through the dynamic use of lighting worked very well in the first painting, so it made sense to reuse and develop all of that. Technically, I found this very challenging as, firstly, I'm not a portrait painter. Secondly, I am incapable of painting anything with a brush that's larger than about 2 millimeters wide, and this Last Supper is almost 4 meters in length. But it is very much in my usual realist style, so I felt confident I could do something worthwhile. Although it's a contemporary painting in a realist style, as an artist I have long been very heavily influenced by Italian Renaissance art from Siena and Florence, and in particular the work of Simona Martini and Leonardo da Vinci. My Last Supper is based loosely on Da Vinci's famous fresco in Milano, and I do readily admit to having stolen his solution to the issue of rendering convincing perspective in a painting which is in fact sighted much higher than the viewer's eye level. And I think Leonardo's solution is a classic case of, wow, he makes it look so easy. Initially, I had been praying a lot about exactly which point in time I was going to portray at the Last Supper meal. And although it had been repeatedly suggested that I use the take this bread, take this cup communion aspect, I really felt quite profoundly challenged to use the moment where Jesus says, "One of you is going to betray me." And the atmosphere I tried to capture is that moment of stunned silence before all chaos erupts. Who is it? Is it me, Lord? As to who would pose for me for this painting, it was an obvious choice to ask the extended Duffin family if they would be willing to model for me, giving me exactly 6 male and 6 female figures alongside the central figure of Jesus, something I felt was particularly important. And being musicians and performers, they were all readily up for it. During Renaissance times, the church was the main patron of the arts and so could govern its content. And in those days, many people were illiterate but would know the meaning of much of its symbolism so they could read a painting. Being influenced by the Renaissance meant that I was keen to load this painting with what would have been very familiar meanings and symbols to the people of the day. Bread and wine are obvious symbols, but what of the goldfinch, for example, or the dandelion in a glass of water next to Jesus? There can be symbolism in colour, in the various objects present, and even the postures of the figures can have symbolic meaning. But back to the goldfinch. The goldfinch, because of its liking for the seeds of thistles and thorn bushes, has become associated with the crown of thorns and hence the Passion of Christ. It is often seen held in the hand of the infant Christ, linking the child with his crucifixion. Flowers are symbolic too. The dandelion is known as the bitter herb, and in this painting sits in a glass of water, which is associated with purity. The other flowers we see are carnations, and they're a symbol of love. This particular still life arrangement of the carnations is from my daughter Kat and son-in-law Gavin's wedding, and for me this also hints at a reference to the first recorded miracle at the wedding feast in Cana. Furthermore, I've mounted a poster on the wall behind my sister-in-law Pam. The poster is from a wonderful exhibition of illuminated Jewish marriage contracts I saw in Jerusalem decades ago. The symbolism in colour. My niece Esther is seen wearing mainly grey, the Renaissance colour of mourning, one reference to the coming death. Interesting to note that she's also wearing a small crucifix and a Magen David, the Star of David. I know that the biblical Queen Esther is one of her mum's heroines. Tim, as the central figure, is seen wearing white, representing holiness of life. Putting black and white together is a recognised representation of humility. Staying with the central figure, I have introduced symbolism in posture and action. Here he has simply tipped over a glass of wine and then sat back waiting. Although the obvious association would be with the blood poured out for you, it is in the silence that followed that I initially envisioned him saying, "One of you is going to betray me," whilst looking straight out at the viewer. Is this Judas? My brother-in-law John? Judas is often portrayed as getting up to leave, to do what you must, as the story tells us. But then in this painting he also has the word hope on his t-shirt, so maybe not. Or my nephew Jamie eating the apple is Judas? The Latin words for apple and for evil, malum, is actually one and the same. But I had already made the decision to put myself in the picture as Judas in both the first and the second versions of the painting. There are a number of clues you could home in on. I'm wearing all black, which even in pagan times was a symbol of darkness and death. But the real giveaway has to be the scorpion tattoo, which, because of the treachery of its sting, it's become the symbol of Judas and associated with treason and deceit. I don't really have that tattoo, by the way, it's just a dabbity. The view out the back window of the painting in reality faces southeast from Langside Church towards Jerusalem. And that's why I chose to use the view from my studio windows in Jerusalem, which also looks southeast along the Street of Prophets to Damascus Gate, the Old City, and the Golden Dome of the Rock. The destruction of the temple, which Jesus predicted, and the later building of the Dome of the Rock is a very incendiary, modical, political and religious issue which still seems yet to have no lasting solution in view. Bullet holes in the back wall of the painting are testament to this. They are in fact taken from the surrounding stonework of my studio windows. I also designed the labyrinth on the sanctuary floor of the church, and I was aware at the time that I had deliberately made the path to come out facing where the Last Supper painting would be placed. That decision was part of a personal response to the whole challenge, knowing that each time I entered the labyrinth I would have to come to terms with grace in all its fullness before leaving. That's one of the reasons why I've illustrated the labyrinth in the book lying open on the table along with the butterfly, symbol of resurrection. Jesus was asked by the religious authorities of the day what the most important command was. What's the most important thing you can do in life? Love God, he said. Oh, and love your neighbour as you love yourself was what he then added. If we rise to the challenge of doing that, then we probably won't go too far wrong.